What's up, guys? UFC 251 just wrapped up, and not the best card. It was stacked to be, one of the best cards of 2020. Extremely exciting. That's what we all thought it was going to be like. There were some good fights. There were some good finishes on the prelims, but we'll start with that main event. Kamaru Usman defeats Jorge Masvidal by decision, 250-45s and 149-46. It was a pretty comfortable win for Usman. Nothing shocking happened in the fight other than, to be honest, Usman actually dominated the clinch, where I thought that Masvidal would actually have the advantage there, because as we know, he's hurt so many people with elbows. He threw some elbows at Usman, but none of them were laying that clean. Usman did a very good job of just sticking on Masvidal and never really creating space. Even when the elbows were coming, there was no space for it to land with full impact. And also, we all know that Jorge Masvidal defeated much bigger fighters than Usman in the clinch before, so it just shows how strong Usman is. To not only handle Tyron Woodley in the clinch, handle Masvidal in the clinch, that's actually very impressive, the way he's able to just hang on to opponents and push them up against the cage and they just can't do anything. And to be honest, that's all he needed. He didn't even need the takedowns. He just went for the takedowns to add more of a convincing argument that he won. I mean, the takedowns are pretty beautiful, to be honest. Some of those changing of directions, turning the corners, stepping off angles with a body lock, like a lot of those were really nice, man. Very flashy takedowns. I have to give credit to Jorge Masvidal. I mean, he defended the ground game, defended the ground and pound, defended the transitions extremely well. Remember when Usman tried to get the full mount? I gotta look back exactly what Jorge did, but I think he got wrist control. He was able to turn over the entire position to the point where Usman had to abandon trying to get full mount, and he just stuck on top in a sprawling position. Jorge is extremely good at wrestling. He's a very good grappler, very good wrestler, just natural at it, but it just didn't matter. The clinch was the deciding factor of the fight. Jorge exploded so much early without landing anything meaningfully, to the point where he kind of gassed out. Like, not gassed out, he was tiring a lot. He was fatiguing a lot, to the point where his punches just were not that fast anymore. Usman was able to start catching him, and he showed that same laziness in his defense that I talked about in prediction video. Same thing where he brings his hands down. He got caught by that big right hand. I think it was like second, third round for doing that, and I just don't know why he does it. It's been part of his game ever since he was that lightweight who was just constantly going to a decision. It could also be that he couldn't adjust to this fight the way he wanted. He was training. People are starting to say that he didn't train. Don't forget the narrative that was set before this. Dustin Poirier and Jorge both said that they were training for this fight. He was in training camp with Dustin Poirier, preparing him for his fight. And he did bring in those wrestlers to prepare for Kamaru Usman prior to the negotiations in the first place. Now, after, of course, he didn't have a full training camp, but it's not like he just jumped off the couch. It would have been a little bit more interesting to see him off a full training camp of what he could have done differently. But to be honest, the way I saw the fight go, I really don't think Jorge would win this fight. I went with Usman predictions, and nothing I really saw from Jorge changed much. To be honest, the fact that I know now that Usman is that strong in the clinch compared to Jorge and able to control him like that, it's going to be very hard for Jorge to ever beat Usman, because that was his biggest opportunity. Whoever got the better of the clinch was probably going to win this fight, because Jorge is able to strike with Usman very well and able to get the better of him when he's not fatiguing, and he's able to defend a lot of the ground and pound shots, so he's able to be very defensively responsible in many areas. So just a solid performance for Kamaru Usman. I see a lot of people saying that it was boring. Yeah, it was kind of boring, but you gotta bring someone who can stop what Usman's doing to make it fun, because Usman just needed the clinch in this fight. He didn't need anything else. If he just needs a clinch to beat a fighter, that's kind of a mismatch in a way. Colby Covington was able to put on a very good fight with Usman because he was able to challenge him in so many areas that other fighters can't. Tyron Woodley couldn't challenge him in most areas. Jorge Masvidal couldn't challenge him in most areas. You gotta bring guys who can challenge him, and like I said prior to this, he got so much disrespect for no good reason, to be honest. Gilbert Burns, like I've been saying this entire time, Gilbert Burns is the hardest fight for Kamaru Usman. I hope this brought to light to everybody else. I know that Gilbert Burns is going to have a very hard time in the clinch, but he's extremely sneaky and he's a lot harder to pressure than Jorge. Jorge's a lot easier to pressure back. Right after that first takedown, when he's doing a lot of leg kicks, which was pretty questionable. I don't know why he was doing so many leg kicks at a wrestler. You got to take it to the ground pretty early for it, and then he just kind of abandoned them. After that takedown, he was able to get pressured so easily to the cage. And also, Jorge was doing a lot of overhands against a wrestler, which is another questionable move, because the wrestler like Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington, these guys are going to counter you with takedowns always when you're trying to attack them with punches. So why throw overhands that are coming at a downward arc from the top? I think it would be a lot better to throw uppercuts and knees and time those stuff instead of overhand rights and high attacks, head kicks and stuff like that. These are probably not the best options against a wrestler, and Jorge kind of paid for it. Whenever he had an opportunity where he was staying far away from Usman, he would kind of mess it up by throwing an overhand right or a switch step overhand left that he threw at Darren Till, and all Usman did was counter him with a double leg and push him against the cage, and then there we go with the clinch again. This was kind of a repeating process. So a guy like Gilbert Burns is a lot harder to pressure. He's a very good striker. He's very powerful and he's fast. He's extremely fast, very technical on the feet, and Usman does not want to go to the ground with him. There is no takedown for Usman, so it will have to stay standing the entire time, which gives a guy like Gilbert Burns more opportunities than it would for a guy like Jorge Masvidal. And again, styles make fights, not so much popularity and name status and stuff. That doesn't matter. None of that matters. None of that matters when it comes to a fight. I was kind of taken away by the disrespect of Gilbert Burns, like nobody wanted to see him fight. Nobody wanted to see that fight. To be honest, I wanted to see that fight more than anything, more than any fight with Kamaru Usman, because of how dangerous it is for Usman. We want to see the champion get challenged, right? We want to see a threatening style, like a Santiago Ponzinibbio. He's another guy. Santiago Ponzinibbio is the other fighter who can really challenge Kamaru Usman in most aspects of the game. We still have Colby Covington. Colby can bring up a very good fight to Kamaru Usman in the rematch as well. Many of these other guys just don't have the style. And the fact that he only needed a clinch to beat Jorge Masvidal shows how good he is. It just shows how dominant he is. If you can't get past that part of his game, it's not going to be a good night for that fighter. So who these two should be fighting next? Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. That has to be the next fight. He didn't take that much damage, so they could probably run that really quickly. Probably sometime September, October, I would say. I know these guys, because of the pandemic, they want to get things going. They want to fight often, like Gilbert Burns has been doing. And as for Jorge Masvidal, this does a bit of a blow to his status. Not as big as, if he came off a full training camp, but the thing is, most casual fans don't know that he didn't have a full training camp. So they take this as, oh, Jorge lost, so they don't care about him anymore. That happens all the time, and it's a bit unfortunate. I know Kamaru Usman said that he would give Jorge a rematch after Jorge gets some wins. So with that, there's a lot of good fights for Jorge Masvidal. Obviously, the Conor McGregor fight's probably off the table. The big money fight for Jorge is Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz rematch is probably the fight to go to next. Competitively, in the fight I want to see, I'd like to see him fight Leon Edwards. That'd be a really good fight. A striking match, very technical striking. I would love to see that one, personally. I can see them going to Nate Diaz, which makes a lot of sense to most parties. And then we go to the co-main event. Alexander Volkanovski defeats Max Holloway the second time by split decision, exchanging 48-47s, and it was a close fight. I already see everybody saying there was a robbery. It was not a robbery. What a robbery is there's absolutely no way, no possibility, no argument that one fighter won the fight, and he did. This is not one of those. First, I want to say, I personally thought Max Holloway won the fight. I thought Max Holloway won the first 3 rounds and lost the last 2. The first 2 rounds were convincing for Max Holloway. The 5th round was convincing for Alexander Volkanovski. 3rd and 4th were close. They were extremely close. I think the 3rd was closer. The 4th, I gave it to Volkanovski. I thought Max Holloway was able to land better punches. He was able to just pick at Volkanovski a little bit better and win the point fighting, but it was an extremely close round where Volkanovski got a takedown, I believe, and he did start to catch Holloway with those jabs and with those left hooks. So because those 3rd and 4th rounds were so close, and the fact that most will agree that Volkanovski could have won both of those rounds, given an argument, that in itself shows that it's not a robbery. The reason why I think a lot of people think it's a robbery, one, a lot of people are Max Holloway fans. He's a very likable character, and he has a fun style. Other thing is, Michael Bisping was a bit biased, constantly saying that Max Holloway's winning this fight and Volkanovski has to finish, which actually wasn't true. And there's this. The most convincing rounds of the fight were given to Max Holloway. So it was kind of hard for people to see how could close rounds go to Volkanovski and how could he win off of that. Because they just saw the first 2 rounds, Volkanovski lost convincingly. To be honest though, after debating some people on social media, I was kind of surprised a lot of people don't know that it's judged round by round. The fights are not judged as a whole. They're judged round by round. So people are pointing out that Max Holloway got knockdowns. But he won both those rounds. Every round he got a knockdown in, he won that round. So it doesn't matter. We're not looking at the first 2 rounds. The 3rd round is what it all relied on. Who won that 3rd round? And 2 of the judges gave it to Volkanovski. And I can see the argument. If you can see the argument that Volkanovski could have won the 3rd round, it's not a robbery. That's all it is. It's not a robbery. I really like Max Holloway's approach early on in the fight. He kept up a very narrow and tall stance where it wasn't allowing Volkanovski to land that many leg kicks without getting answered for it, because the punches are going to be a lot closer, because when you have a narrow stance, the legs are not out there for the taking, so Volkanovski has to get in a little bit closer to to land the leg kicks, and when he tried, he was getting punched in the face because he has to get in closer. And also, Volkanovski was getting countered for throwing that lunging left hook. His left hooks are doing very well when Holloway engaged him, but when he went forward, sometimes they were landing, especially later on in the fight where it seemed like Holloway started to slow down a bit, but in the early rounds, he was getting countered hard by the right uppercut. Holloway would take a back step, one step, and counter with the uppercut, left hook follow-up, and that was just answering a lot of the aggression from Alexander Volkanovski, because when you're throwing a left hook moving forward, you're not getting out of the line of sight from an uppercut. Your head is still in the same place. An overhand right from Volkanovski would have took him off the center line, and that would have actually caught Max Holloway. And what seemed to be a big answer to a lot of what Max Holloway tried to do later in the fight was the jab. Just a simple jab from Volkanovski. He wasn't throwing them early. He was just trying to wing punches at Max Holloway, maybe trying to prove a point that he's not point fighting, but then he eventually had to resort back to point fighting. They both were actually. And then he started to find the jab, he started finding leg kicks are working, and he tried takedowns, he got a couple of them, which was actually pretty impressive. But I believe Max Holloway said that the canvas was actually slippery, and that could have been why he was getting taken down, where we never see Holloway get taken down. But, you know, it wasn't the most eventful fight, and I will have to say the most impressive thing about this was Max Holloway's power. He is not known for power. He's not known to one-shot people and drop them with one punch. He did that in this fight against Volkanovski, who's extremely durable. We're talking about a guy who went to war with Chad Mendes and ate some huge shots. 8 shots from Max Holloway the first time. I don't know what happened here. Max Holloway just stinking Volkanovski with those uppercuts and stuff. And even the head kick rocked him. Like, I've never seen Holloway hurt people like that. But at the end of the day, Volkanovski won. That's just what it is. It was a close fight, mostly a point fight, defended his belt, and is now the consensus featherweight GOAT. I'm just joking when I say that. But who these two should be fighting next? Volkanovski should wait it out, because we got Zabit going to be fighting Yair Rodriguez, and we have Korean Zombie going to be fighting Brian Ortega. The one who has a more impressive win out of those two fights gets the title shot. So at this point, Volkanovski just sit back, sit down, watch the fights, and see who the next contender he's going to chase down is. As for Max Holloway, I think he should fight the one who's not going to get the title shot. Let's say Brian Ortega and Korean Zombie fight, the winner of that got an impressive finish or something. I think Max Holloway should fight the winner of Zabit versus Yair, and vice versa. I think that makes the most sense. And then we go to Petr Yan defeats Jose Aldo by 5th round TKO. I feel bad for Jose Aldo a bit, man. The fight was competitive early on, and it just showed Jose Aldo technically is able to compete with Yan. Like, he's technically able to keep up with Yan, but what happened was fatigue. The usual fatigue from Jose Aldo set in again, and it was his demise. He actually won the second round. Once he switched it up from boxing to Muay Thai, he started to win the fight. The kicks were landing, the leg kicks were sweeping Petr Yan off his feet, and it made Yan guess so much to the point where he kind of froze up from a distance. Like, he didn't know what to come in with, because Aldo constantly kept that lead knee up just in case to either push kick or frame to keep Petr Yan outside, not get in. Don't come in with those switch step combos. It kept him from a distance, and that is where the kicks from Aldo was just landing constantly. Whenever Aldo engaged the fight in a boxing manner, he was just losing. Like, he just getting caught. He kept dropping his lead hand when he was retreating and getting caught by the right overhand from Petr Yan, but Aldo just couldn't keep it up. First, his kicks got away, and then everything got away, where he was just so defensive, he didn't throw anything back. That's where Petr Yan just took advantage, able to drop Jose Aldo, finish him off with ground and pound, and the ref let Aldo be a warrior, you know? He let the warrior out of Aldo and eat some unanswered shots that he shouldn't have. Like, he should have stopped that fight way before. Aldo's older in his career. He's taken so much damage. He doesn't need any more of that. So it was a valiant effort from Jose Aldo. Had some good moments in the fight. Did better than a lot of people predicted. A lot of people thought that Petr Yan was just going to bulldoze through him. Petr Yan's the new king of the bantamweight division, and to be honest, I feel it. It's a new era of the bantamweight division, and it's a breath of fresh air, man. When you got guys like Petr Yan, Aljamain Sterling, Corey Sandhagen, Cody Garbrandt, Sean O'Malley's on the come up, and guys like Dominic Cruz and those older guys have fallen. It's a new era, and I'm so excited for it. Who these two should be fighting next? Well, it should be set in stone. Petr Yan versus Aljamain Sterling, which is an amazing fight. I do think Petr Yan's gonna win, but it's the fight that has to happen. And as for Jose Aldo, I think he should retire. There's nothing left for the guy. Unless he can get Conor McGregor back, there's nothing left for, unless he can even get a rematch with Max Holloway. Like, there's only vengeful fights left for Jose Aldo. There's nothing left for him to win. He's 0-2 in the bantamweight division officially. He got his title shot and he lost. He lost his belt at 145. Like, the championship route, the chase to a belt, has pretty much gone away now. I really want to see him retire. He's a legend. He's the best 145er of all time. He's one of the best fighters of all time. And then we go to Rose Namajunas defeating Jessica Andrade by split decision. I don't know what that judge was giving Jessica Andrade the first round for, 4. I personally gave Rose the first 2 rounds and Jessica Andrade the third, where she started to hurt Rose Namajunas. She caught her with that big right overhand and landed on the inside of Rose Namajunas' lunging left hook. The story of the fight was straight punches beat looping punches. Even when Jessica Andrade landed, straight punches beat looping punches. That's what the entire fight was. Whenever Andrade looped in with the left hook, Rose caught her with the right straight. Whenever they started to exchange close range, which I was kind of scared for Rose, she was landing jab, straight right hand as Jessica Andrade was doing these haymakers. But what gave Rose a hard time early was just the constant head movement of Jessica Andrade. You see that Rose was guessing herself. She didn't know what to attack with and when to attack. She kind of had to wait for Jessica Andrade to get the feeling of the fight. But I'm also a bit surprised Rose Namajunas did that well in the clinch. I mean, she didn't allow Jessica Andrade to bully her. She landed some good knees, able to position very well. And overall, just a good performance by Rose Namajunas and a good third round for Jessica Andrade. So who these two should be fighting next? Rose Namajunas versus Zhang Weili. That's the fight to make. Zhang Weili wants it. Rose is next in line. Rose has not fought Zhang Weili yet, so that's the fight to make next. And as for Jessica Andrade, I like to see her fight Tatiana Suarez. That'd be a really good fight. The wrestling of Suarez is going to be tested by the strength of Andrade. And also, can Suarez keep up with that pace? Amanda Ribas submitted Paige VanZant so early, so quickly, straightforward win. Tripped her, threw her on her back, had a very sneaky back take into an armbar transition. That was just a wrap. Like, easy win for Amanda Ribas. And I believe now Paige VanZant is a free agent, and this is not good coming off that kind of performance into free agency. I'm pretty sure Bellator would want her for many reasons. According to Paige VanZant, she does very well outside of fighting, so she doesn't have to fight. That's just what it is. Like, she doesn't even have to fight. If she's making that much money out of fighting, I don't understand why she would do it. She got into this because she was kind of bullied, right? She went to get her frustration and aggression out from her school days. That's behind her now, so I don't know. She's doing well outside of it. I don't know why she would continue doing it. I'm just pushing her to a certain direction. Prochazka defeated Oezdemir by TKO in the second round. Such a weird style. I mean, we're talking about a guy who has to fight Johnny Walker. First of all, that's what we gotta say next. I forgot to pronounce his name. Prochazka has to fight Johnny Walker. He's like looking away from Volkan. He got caught for that. That wasn't the best thing to do. Just keep looking away from Volkan, and Volkan was answering him with the right hand. He kept touching his right hand and then firing it out there. Just a lot of sneaky, weird stuff that, to be honest, I don't think he's gonna go that far doing this stuff. He needs the fundamentals to beat guys like John Jones and Dominic Reyes, but he did beat Volkan Oezdemir in his debut and finished him. We're talking about Volkan Oezdemir, who nobody even hurts this guy that much. He's super durable, extremely good chin, and able to knock him out senseless with a 1-2 combination. Like, he's doing all this funky stuff that was kind of getting him caught, and he was catching Volkan here and there. He did catch him with a high kick, but then he kept it to the basics right after. He's like, forget all that. 1-2, drops him. So I would like to see Prochazka versus Johnny Walker. That's too good of a fight to not do. We're talking about a pure wild offensive fight. Pure power, no defense, just go. Like, that's it, just go at each other. Muslim Salikov got a very questionable decision over Zaleski Dos Santos. I thought Dos Santos won the fight. He dropped Salikov in the first round and then hurt him badly in the second, and nothing in return happened to the same extent, so he had to have won those rounds, right? According to the new rules, damage trumps all. If you hurt the guy that bad and the other guy doesn't hurt you, the rules say that Zaleski Dos Santos won those 2 rounds, but, you know, the judges went to Salikov. They both threw some interesting spinning stuff. It wasn't the most exciting or action-packed fight, but Salikov fought like he was a one-step fighter. Everything was in single actions, and he wasn't really able to get away from some of the combinations of Dos Santos. Dos Santos was coming with a jab and overhand right, and Salikov would move away from the jab and get him in line of sight of the overhand right, and that happened a couple times in the fight. Makwan Amirkhani had a very good anaconda choke on Danny Henry. It seemed to be pretty competitive on the feet, but I was very impressed with Amirkhani, keeping it very slow early, where he usually likes to explode, and that's how he starts gassing out in his fights. So kept it slow, saw the opportunity for the flying knee takedown combo, got it to the ground, got the anaconda choke, which was extremely slick, and a very good early win for him. And I did miss the rest of the fight. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, hope you guys enjoyed the fights, and if you did, make sure to thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the breakdown.